here. I am recording. Awesome. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Amanda Lambert. I am going to go over some land prep with y'all this morning. I just want it to be very interactive. If you have questions about land, listing land, help your clients buy land, we will try to answer them as much as possible. I coin myself as the landlady. I specialize in a lot of land. That's where I really like. I love to help clients buy land and then help build their dream house, because land is a animal of its own, both when you list it and you sell it as well. So let me just kind of start off with, what type of questions do y'all have about land? And then we can kind of piggyback off of that. And if you don't, then we can kind of go, but that way it's kind of better sometimes if someone has questions about land, even if they're just general, then we can kind of go down that trail easier.
I do have a question.
Yes.
I do a lot of land, and so I'm trying to figure out what is, and I ask different people. Chris Puckett, I harass him all the time. What is your best method to the madness as far as pricing your land?
Pricing my land. So what I typically do when I go to price my land is I'll look at what does my land have? Does my land have city water and city sewer available to it? If it does, has those taps been paid, those tap fees with whoever connects to? And that would be my number one. If it is available, calling, whether it's the county or the city, whoever is tapping into that you're going to tap into, and finding out how much those tap fees are, because you're going to have agents that's going to call and say, well, it's in Harrisburg. Is the tap fees paid? Oh, well, they're not paid. Well, how much are those tap fees? That's going to be your number one question that's going to come from your other agents. So if you can go ahead and find out that information instead of saying, well, I don't know, have them call it, because you're going to have to answer that question multiple times. So that is one thing. That's the biggest thing in helping determine a price. On top of your acreage. How big is your piece of property? And then what is the amount of what I call buildable soil? So how does your land lay? Is it rolling? Is it flat? Is it semi? And knowing, okay, whoever buys and builds on this property, are they going to have to do a basement lot? Is it more conditioned to a basement lot? Or is it going to be a high crawl space that's going to fall to one side or the other? And then, or is it just pretty level and they can just do normal crawl, or they can do a slab, whatever they choose. So I kind of look at what type of housing are they going to have to put on here. And then I look at, obviously, well and septic. If it has not been tested at all, then I just base it off of, it's just going to need normal well and septic, which is, we're going to run about $12,000 to $15,000 for an average conventional well and septic. And then I go into the MLS, and then I look at, okay, what has sold around the area that's pretty comparable. And even if I have to break that down, like say my lot is maybe only an acre lot, and something sold for 2 acres or had 3 acres, or vice versa. if my lot is bigger, then I look at what is the price per acre that has sold around it and how comparable with that land is it to my land. Was that land more hilly and mine's more flat, which is going to make it more, your land that's more flat is going to be more profitable, or something along those lines. So I use a lot of different methods in trying to figure out, okay, how much is it really, the end buyer, how much are they really going to have to spend to get this land ready to be able to build on it? Because that's something that's going to go in their mind, especially when they come out and they have their contractor out there with them. They're like, okay, well, we only have a budget to spend so much to prep my land. So if I'm spending X amount of dollars just to buy the land, but then I have to spend, $50,000 more to prep my land, that might not work out when they have a $400,000 house that they're trying to build. The house is going to cost $400,000, So I think about it in those terms. I kind of take it and I go backwards from it. I don't know if that's just the way that I've trained, because I was in like general construction prior to, so I kind of look at it that way. The other thing I like to say, and I'm sure we probably all know this, is that the more acreage you buy, the less expensive it is per acre.
Yeah.
And so you definitely need to take that in thought process when you're getting into larger tracts of land. An acre might have sold for $20,000, but you're not going to get $20,000 for an acre of land when you're trying to sell 10 or 15 acres of land. You might get maybe more like $14,000 per acre of land. So
okay.
It's kind of one of those things. It's like, if you buy more land, you get a deal on it.
Right. I have a seller that I'm having trouble convincing that with, because he's got a lot of acreage. I can't get him to bump down his price some, so we're still sitting on it.
Well, and here's the flip side of that, and what I say is, when people say, well, I want to buy land, and then why is the land so expensive? It's like, well, land is the only thing they're never going to be able to make more of. Once it's sold and it's built on, that's it.
Right.
We're never going to make more land, especially down in Mount Pleasant. Everybody wants to move down to Mount Pleasant. They're like, there's, it's so much open fields, and there's, not a lot of buildings, and it is, and that's great. And that's the way Mount Pleasant is keeping it. And they understand that concept, that that's all the land that they're going to get, and they're never going to get any more of it. So that's why they kind of keep it the way it is. And then I tell my clients that say they want to move there, I'm like, either someone is dying or divorcing, and that's how you're getting into Mount Pleasant.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Amanda?
Yes.
A land that doesn't percolate, that doesn't pass the percolation test, what do you suggest to your client to do with it?
Okay, so there's a couple steps. There's a couple questions I asked before we get to, does it just not perk? So does it not perk per the county? And that's where you've stopped, or have you went one step further and brought a soil scientist out to actually examine the entire parcel of land? And if you have brought in the soil scientist, which is going to cost a large chunk of money depending on how big your parcel is, I say it can cost, go ahead and plan $1,500 to $2,000 to bring the soil scientist in. Could be cheaper, could be more, again, depending. Once the soil scientist has came in, that soil scientist is most likely going to be able to find at least one spot for some type of system, most likely. And so then you have to go back once they come in and say, okay, well, I've found one spot and it's going to be able to perk for a drip system or an unconventional system, then you have to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, we might need to adjust our pricing because it's going to cost $20,000 to bring in this system. We need to, again, adjust our price because no one's going to spend, X amount of dollars on top of $20,000 for their septic. 9 times out of 10, when you bring that soil scientist in, they're going to be able to find somewhere that's going to perk for some type of system. There has only been one time, probably in my 15 years, that I've had one piece of land that literally did not perk for nothing. We brought the soil scientist in, and it did not perk whatsoever. And at that point, now you do have what I coin as useless land to build. That's something you might need to, have that land strictly as like a farming land or some type of cattle land or something along those lines you could possibly rent out. But for the most part, once you bring in that soil scientist, you're going to be able to find some point, some parcel that's going to be, or some point in the parcel that's going to be able to perk. When the county goes out there, and I'll show y'all shortly, they're only going to perk about 3 places. 3 to 5 places they're going to try to find to perk. And that's basically where you or your clients are telling them to look. Your clients are saying, hey, I want my house to sit roughly in this location, so they know that the septic needs to be a minimum of 50 feet away from the house. And so we're only going to try to perk in these few locations. And that's based on what the client is saying. And when they deny those holes, then it's time to bring in the soil scientist. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Did you say it is around 1,500 to 2,000 to bring the scientist in?
Most of the time it's going to be around 1,500 to 2,000. Again, that could be less, it could be more. Just telling, you can always do a consult. I have 2 awesome soil scientists that I work with in Cabarrus and Rowan. That's Wendell Overby. He is my #1 go-to. And then there is Thompson Engineering. He's out of Midland. Both of them, just depending, that typically is the amount of the bill that I see that my clients come through. Again, it could be more, it could be less, but I always bring the soil scientist in after the county. In Cabarrus County, it's $160 to do a soil test in Cabarrus County. So if my clients are trying to purchase vacant land that has never been tested, that's the first step I go through. It's $160. We know where they would like to put the house. We try to get them out there. The other thing I do, if I'm the buyer's agent, I like to do this both my listing and my selling, is I like to be out there when the county goes out there to perk the property. I do that for 2 reasons. Because I will know right away. I also have a good working relationship with those testers. There's Mark and there is Tyler out there that is working with the county. Jacob is there part-time as well for Cabarrus County. But I like to go out there. One, it's education for me. I start learning about the soil. And they've really embraced me in the last couple of years of they know I like to go out there. But that way, if I have the buyer, I kind of know my client's vision of where they want to put the house. And I know they've put it on their sketch, they want the septic in this location. But if they are out there trying to perk those holes and they're not coming up with good dirt, then I know, hey, well, can we move over here and do some more holes back here? And they're typically more lenient and will do more hole testing than if they were out there by themselves. If they're out there by themselves, they're just going to try to perk 3 to 5 sites and that's it, because they don't know, they're just going off the sketch that your clients are providing them. But if you're out there and you can see things are not, the dirt's not looking, great, then you can say, well, I know that they're not going to build anything over here. Can we try to perk over here? And they're typically a little bit more lenient and will start like doing more holes for you so you can get a good result. And you'll know right there, they're going to tell you, yeah, this is going to pass for conventional, or you might have to do a low pressure system or something. They already know when they see that soil come out, they know what's good soil, what's not good soil. Or they're going to be able to tell you, I can't get anything. It's going to be in the best interest to go ahead and get the soil scientist out there. The other good thing, because both Wendell and Thompson has been around so long, they have a really good working relationship with the counties, and the counties typically take what the soil scientist says as the gospel, and they will go ahead and approve anything that the soil scientist says. They kind of trump the county. The county will just go along with what the soil scientist says. Now, if you get a soil scientist that is from out of town, they might want to, do some research and make sure it's correct. But typically, the county sees a lot of Wendell stuff and a lot of Thompson stuff, and they'll just take their word for it.
Thank you. And another question is, do you know if there is a standard distance between the septic and the well?
Yes, it has to be a minimum of 100 feet between the well and the septic.
That distance is in Rowan on Cabarrus, it is everywhere.
It's definitely Cabarrus. I'm pretty sure it's Rowan as well. And the other thing, you just don't want your drinking water near your poopy water either. And 100 feet is really not that far.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, any other questions? Let me screen share and I will show y'all. Y'all, I don't have the chat back. I do not have the chat box up. So y'all just talk to me. All right. So when you go to, I do this when I list. When I go to list a property, I will ask the owner, have you already had the property, perk tested? If they have not, it's perfectly fine. I tell them we don't need to have it perk tested. We'll just have the buyer do that as their buyer's due diligence. Now, if they want to be if your seller wants to be proactive, they can go ahead and do that and have it perk tested. I typically will see that land that already has a perk will sell a lot faster and for a little bit more money, typically, if it's already been perk tested. I don't know why it is, because the perk test is only $160, but sometimes I will see that land that has already been perked, and definitely for perked for conventional system, or perked and priced accordingly to what the system is, then it typically sells a little bit higher. I don't know why. But if your owner says, I have no idea, I just, I bought this house 3 years ago and it came with, this land and, these 5 acres, and I want to cut off these 3. I don't know if it's been perked or not. Most likely it probably hasn't. But there is a way to check on your to see if any perk has been done. And you can do this on properties that if you're the buyer's agent and you want to know, your clients are super interested in a property, and you ask the agent, has it been tested? No, we don't know. But what you can do is you can come to the Cabarrus Health Alliance page here, and it says environmental health request for information form, and you just click right here. Maybe. And what you do is you go in and you put in the information on that property. So whoever the current owner of that property is, you list other possible names. The information could be under or NA if you don't know. And typically all these have to be filled in. The property PIN number, home the year was built, you can do another NA because it would be vacant land, the road number and name, and then if there's a subdivision, and then you just put your name, your telephone number, and your email and send this form in. And they will send back, typically you give them 24 to 48 hours. Now this is just for Cabarrus County. But they will send you back any perk information they have on that property. They might come back and say, we have no perk information ever. They might come back and say, this is information that is 15 years old. You would have to update it. But this is a great form to fill out, both if you're listing property and your owner has no idea if it's ever been perked, or if you're the buyer's agent and your clients are kind of interested in the listing agent says, I don't know if it's ever been perked. I will do this a lot. If I get a client that's super interested, maybe they did what I call drive-bys, because I will tell my clients, especially on vacant raw land, do a drive-by before we put our boots on. Do a drive-by, see if you like the location, see if you like the neighborhood. Do the drive-by, see if you like how it looks. The other thing when you're selling land is that you have to be able to tell the story to your clients. You have to be able to paint that picture for them. Because sometimes your clients are not always visual. And so they look at a piece of land and it goes straight down. And they're like, oh my gosh, how's my driveway going to work? Well, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to put some dirt in here. We're going to fill this in, make it really nice. And then, we'll put your house back here and this is how it's going to look. So being able to tell that story and paint that picture for them is super ideal. And so, but they have to like the location, they have to like the road, they have to like, their neighbors, and seeing what type of houses is beside of that. Are they wanting to put a $400,000 house? Well, the neighbors, are they only $200,000 houses? That's really probably, you don't want your clients to be big fish in a little pond. So we do drive-bys. If they like it, we're out there, we've walked the land. I absolutely put my boots on and we go walk through the mud, through the rain. I've taken umbrellas. I've walked 30 acres of land and pouring down rain before. Sometimes it's just kind of the best things. Then I will go pull this form, and typically the county will send it back to me within 24 to 48 hours of whatever information they have, if they have it or they don't have it. So this is for Cabarrus County. It's on the Cabarrus County Health Alliance website. And so that's a really good form I use. It says please allow 5 working days for a response. I've never had 5 days. It's always been 24 to 48 hours. But I guess it could, depending on how backed up they may be. The other one that is not the website I was trying to go to. Go over here. Now, if you are now this form, this website right here is for my clients that are going to get a perk test, whether it's the sellers or the buyers. I typically use this more for buyers than I do my sellers, because like I said, you can always list your property that doesn't have a perk, which is perfectly fine, and have the buyers do it. But if your sellers want to do it, like I said, they can do it. The information to start the perk test is right here. It's on the county's septic system site evaluation tab. I just click right here, and it's going to open a PDF for me. Maybe all over here. And so is it 4 pages or 3? It's 3 pages. All right. So it says, dear applicant, please read carefully. So either you can do this as the real estate agent, or you can have your clients do that, whatever type of personality you have, because your clients might be all on it and all about it, like I'm going to do this myself, or you can do it for them. So what you will need is this three-page application. You will need a copy of the purchase contract that is signed between buyer and seller. And then what is going to happen is they're going to need an accurate site plan, a copy of an accurate site plan. They prefer it to scale, and they really do prefer it to scale, whatever scale that might be, but they want it to be scale. Another reason I love my grid paper. Not only do I measure all my houses myself, and I use my grid paper, but I'd like to do my site plans on my grid paper as well. So right here you see, we will require a copy of an accurate site plan, preferably to scale, that shows all the proposed improvements on your land. This includes any property lines with dimensions, locations of existing and proposed structures showing setbacks, wells, driveways, and then location of surface waters, your preferred site for the septic system, and your well. So this is what they want to look like. So this is a site plan worksheet. This is what they want. So you see that this is, you know, a property, roads out here, Highway 50, this is Highway 58. They have like a water line. You see the driveway, you see proposed house right here with the dimensions, like the size of your house. You see they have a shed, again, the size of the house. How far is the shed off of this property line, the side property line? How far is the shed off the back property line? Again, the same thing with the house. How far is it off from the side property line and the road frontage? And then it's showing the well and the septic area. And again, what's your foot or the number of feet of each of your property lines? Now, this looks daunting for some people, and it can be, but there is a very good way to kind of like dumb it down. And literally, you take a copy of GIS, you get on the GIS website, you print off your GIS. I just will tape it up to, I don't have a light box anymore because I don't do a lot of architecture, but just throw it up on a window that has a lot of light, and you kind of copy that onto your grid paper, knowing what your GIS is going to tell you, what is your measurements of each of the property lines, and then knowing your house. Like I tell my clients, make the size of your house as big as you think it's going to be. Is that 90 by 90? Is that 75 by 75? Like, what's the biggest? It can always be smaller, but you can never go bigger. That's what I tell my clients. Like, all right, you think your house is going to be, the footprint of your house is going to be 60 by 60, 75 by 75, 90 by 90. What do you think it's going to be? Always make it bigger than they think, because that footprint, even, and you're just going to make that square on the site plan. It's just going to be square, and you're going to put, 90 by 90 or 75 by 75. And then no, do you want their driveway? Which side are they thinking the driveway is going to come in on? And then you're going to put the driveway there. Again, if they're going to have any sheds, any detached buildings, any barns, anything of that nature, they already know that. Go ahead and put those on there. Again, you're also going to have to put how far is the house sitting off the road and from the side property line. Again, if you're going to do any detached, how big is those detached? And again, where's it coming off sideline to sideline? And then you're going to put, okay, where do they want to put their well? And then where do you want to put your septic tank? And the biggest thing is you can never drive over your septic tank or your septic fields ever. So you can't put your septic over here where the well is at, because this is where they're going to be driving. You can never drive over your septic fields ever. You can't put a building on top of it. You can't put a concrete pad on it. Now, can you ride your little four-wheeler on top of it a couple of times? Yes, that's perfectly fine. But you cannot have heavy equipment every day riding over top of it, over your septic. So it needs to sit back out of the way. And then again, it needs to be a roughly minimum about 50 feet away from the house. Can be further away if it needs to be. Minimum 50 feet away from the house. And then your well has to be 100 feet away from your septic. Again, you don't want your drinking water close to your poopy water either. So think about it that way. And that's literally what I turn into the county is this. Like, this looks very like drawn out. But what they're looking for is the size of the house, where it is sitting on the property, and then where's the well and where is the septic. Because if you are not out there, this is what they have to go by when they're trying to find those perk sites. They're saying, okay, well, they're putting their house here, so your perks, and they want their septic back here, so we have to be able to perk it in this area. But if you're out there and you know, well, they don't plan to do any detached, or, you know, if we just flip the driveway, hey, there's good dirt over here where the shed is supposed to be, and you know your clients really don't care which side, if they can flip their driveway or they can flip their shed or something along those lines, then you can tell whoever is out there perking it, hey, can we go try over here? Because that's going to be cheaper to have them out there already, and you have those thoughts in your mind that my client really doesn't care, so let's try to get over here. Then the county failing it, and then that's going to show a failed report through their system, and then someone's going to have to pay to have the soil scientists come out there. So that's another reason I like to go out there as well. The other thing you're going to have to do, and you can do this or you can have your clients do it as well. Most of the time I do it because I know it's right. Is the county is going to want at minimum the corners of the house marked off on the physical property. So I'll just go buy like some hot pink tape or some green tape, and I will go out there. Sometimes my clients will go with me. Sometimes I'll just go by myself, or I'll take my husband and pull my tape out and mark the corners of the house off on the property, because that is how the county is going to know exactly, okay, here's the corners because they're marked on the physical property, and I'm looking at this map, the septic is supposed to be back over here.
Question, Amanda.
Yes.
If the client wants to buy the land and hold and build later, but they're not sure yet what they're gonna do, so how do you work with that?
Well, if the land has not been perked, I mean, it would be your due diligence. It would be in the best interest of your clients to find out if the land is going to perk at all. And so even if it's not something that they plan to build later, I would have them say, okay, you know, what do you think, where do you think it's going to perk out right? Or where would you put your house at in the near future? They probably already have some kind of idea. Of course, they don't know what the footprint of their house is going to look like, but they have to have some kind of idea of where they would possibly place their house. And so that's the minimum what I would do, is at least have that placement with that driveway, and then you can go off knowing, you know, well and septic should be here and here. And then that way we know if it perks or not, because you don't want to sell clients a property and not have a perk test done prior to, and then, you know, 2 years later they go to build and it don't even perk, then it's going to come back on you. Well, why didn't we have a perk test? So that's the minimum. I would at least minimum say, okay, well, let's do a floor plan of a house that's 100 by 100 or 75 by 75 or 90 by 90 or whatever it is, the maximum they think, because they have to have an idea of like, well, we'd probably like to put our house here. The other thing is, once it perks, your septic has to stay in that spot, but your house can move as long as it's, you know, within the parameters of septic staying away from the house. So the house can move. It's not like set in stone, but they have to have some kind of idea of where they need to perk at. They can't just say, well, it's just a blank canvas, because then they could be out there for days.
Thank you.
They typically just stay out there 30 minutes, 45 minutes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What other questions might you have?
Amanda, do you have a lender who will lend to build a property and to buy the land at the same time?
So if you're going to do a construction loan, there's a lot of different lenders that will do construction. If you're going to do it all one bundle swoop together, you're going to buy the land and you're going to build a house all at the same time. There's a lot of different lenders to choose from when you're going to go that route. What I run into the most is they want to buy the land and hold it for 2 to 3 years and pay it down and then build. And so with that respect, even both construction loans or just what I call land loans, my number one go-to is Carolina Farm Credit. And they are, throughout the whole Cabarrus, Stanley, Rowan, Montgomery, they do a lot. So they're my number one go-to is Carolina Farm Credit. F&M Bank will do land loans. And then F&M, First Citizens, and URI. Those are my 4 go-tos for land. And then always check if your clients can go with State Employees Credit Union, see what kind of deals that State Employees Credit Union can offer them as well. So those are my number 4, and then always add in State Employees if they're a member and can get something. Typically with land loans, you're going to see if they're just going to do straight land loans, what I'm seeing right now with my clients, it's about 20 to 25% down that they're going to need of that purchased property. You can download this application here on this website, or you can physically go pick one up. I call it, for Cabarrus County, I call it the Pink Palace, the pink building on, what is that, Church Street, the governmental center. It would be on level 2. Construction standards is actually where you kind of go. It's called construction standards. You go in there, and Maria was there the last time. Maria has been there forever. I don't know if she's still there. But she is the one, you can pick an application up for Cabarrus County from from that location. And when you go to turn it in, that is the same place you'll actually turn in this application. You turn it in at the government building, not at the Health Alliance. Now, like Jacob and Mark and Tyler, their office is out of the Health Alliance, but you actually turn this information in at the government center in Cabarrus County for Cabarrus County properties. For Rowan, the environmental health website, Rowan's environmental health website. So site plan worksheet is all these links are very much the same. The site plan worksheet, just like you had for Cabarrus County, the requirements for septics, well and septics as well. So then we're the same places you're going to get, you're going to fill out, you're going to need an application, you're going to need that site plan, the documentation, who is the authorized agent owner. Sometimes you might need a copy of the zoning permit. They can typically pull that. And then they're going to, again, flag all the property lines. It does not have to have a complete survey. A lot of people get caught up that you actually have to have a survey of the property. You do not have to have a survey of the property. Now your clients will have to have a survey of the property before they can have their building permit. Before they get a building permit, that is when your clients is going to need a complete true survey of the property in your client's name. But sometimes people get confused because they need they say they need a survey of the property for the septic perk test, and that is not true. Any other questions? Yvonne, how's your land deal trying to go?
South.
Oh gosh.
Well, they decided they were, I sent you that stuff. They were kind of like, I don't know. One wanted it, the other one wasn't too sure about it. There was just too many questions. So then they found another parcel in Mount Pleasant they kind of liked, but it seemed to be in one of those creepy family-owned neighborhoods. You know what I'm talking about? Back in the woods.
Yep.
So that one was out. So I'm still looking. We're still looking. But this has been good information. I've been jotting down all kinds of goodies.
Awesome. I know Yvonne and I was on the phone for like an hour one night because hers was a little bit more complex, and you'll run into this every once in a while, that when you get these larger tracts of land, they'll be part of the forestry conservation. It's a big tax break for the current owners to be in there, but then it gets a little convoluted when you go off to sell it, because typically those owners are in contract with the forestry to go in and take the timber and take the trees and replant, every 8 to 10 years. But yeah, so it's always a learning process sometimes, but you'll get these oddities in there sometimes. So no two transactions are ever the same.
I have a question. I know that I've asked you this before, we've talked about this before, but I think I was asking you just about one specific situation. How often, as far as like when you're making an offer on land, how often do you feel like a listing agent or seller will forgo like the due diligence, understanding that your buyer is going to have to put money into like the perk test and all that? Like percentage wise, like, is that a rare occasion that they'll forgo due diligence, or is it like half and half, or most of the time they'll, kind of forgo that?
I have gotten away with a lot of land deals that I did not have my clients didn't have to put too much put any due diligence money or just a small bit of due diligence money in there, because I always try to tell that listing agent, especially if I'm the buyer's agent, they're going to have to put, at least $160 into this to even see if it perks. And if it doesn't perk, then it's a benefit to their client if it doesn't perk for what they want. And here's the other thing: in that application, they have to tell them how many bedrooms that house is going to be. Is it going to be a 3-bedroom? Is it going to be a 4-bedroom? Is it a 5-bedroom? And that's what the county is trying to perk it for. So if you put down, hey, I want to perk for a 5-bedroom house, but it comes back and it only perks for a 3-bedroom house, if those clients are, has 4 kids and they're needing a 5-bedroom house, they don't want that land anymore because it only perks for a 3-bedroom house. Well, it perks for a 3-bedroom conventional house, and that's positive for the seller, but the buyer just paid that $160. So for me right now, I have gotten away a lot without doing due diligence. I'll always have my clients do earnest money, and I tell them, look, my clients are going to pay this $160 just to find out if it's even going to perk for what they want. And so that to me sometimes is the due diligence money. Now, there's a lot of other factors of how long has that property sat on the market? Is it brand new on the market? If it's brand new on the market, you're probably going to have to put some type of due diligence in if it's brand new on the market, even knowing that you're going to have to perk. So it's just there's a lot of different factors that goes into how do we do that. And then the other thing is just asking your clients, like asking the listing agent, well, what's important to your clients as well. So
yeah. Another question is, I know I was showing some land to some people, and my husband's a builder, and they wanted him to go to look at the land with them about building their home. But like, it was advertised as that it perked, but he was saying he didn't know if that was like a blanket perk test, like for that whole like development, or if they had actually had each individual lot perk tested, because that's something in Rowan County that he runs into a lot. So even though it said it had perked, they would be in a situation where they would still have to go in and have that specific lot perked for that for how many bedrooms could be on that lot. Like, they had run, like neighborhood perk tests. They're like, yeah, this area is perks, but not necessarily per lot. So is that anything that you've run into much, or no, not really?
I haven't ran into that a lot. What I have ran into is, so when you have a perk test done, they are good for 5 years. And so I have ran into the point that, a perk test was done 8 years ago or done 10 years ago. Well, we know that it perked that, 10 years ago, we know it perked. Your clients, if you have the buyers, are still going to have to go in there and have a new perk test completed to make sure it still perks. Land typically can change every 7 years. And so there's a way that if you really get land that my sellers, that is the only time it's ever happened, literally did not have good land. We had the county out there, we had the soil scientists out there, could not. And so the thought process and what the soil scientist says, start bringing in good dirt, and in 7 years you'll be able to have a piece of land that will perk for a conventional system. So you can take your bad land and turn it into good land. It takes time and bringing good dirt in, but you can change the land. And land, so either it was like Mark or Tyler was telling me that land changes, or the soil and the clay, especially around here, changes roughly every 7 years. It changes over time. And so what might not have perked 10 years ago may be able to perk now because the minerals and the oils have changed in the land.
Interesting. Good to know. Yeah, we just had a big situation in Rowan County because we were building a house and for someone, and they on record their house, the land perked, but then they came out and said that the person with the county had been not doing the test right, and all of these situations, like the land wasn't perked right, and the county was going to have to buy back the land because it was their employees slub up. And so that house sat for 6 months waiting on the soil situation. So the soil can be a big deal.
Yes, soil can be a big deal. And that's the other thing is, a lot of people will write off, oh, well, it doesn't perk for a conventional system. It doesn't perk for a conventional system. I don't want it. There's so many variations of unconventional systems. There's one system. I think it's the low pressure drip. Maybe I might be telling. It's a drip system, but literally it's a conventional system with a large tube, larger tube than what it is, and it's literally $2,000 more than the conventional system. But they have to put it down as it's an whatever type of system it is. Now, is there some systems that are $25,000 to $30,000? Yes, absolutely. And then you need to go back and restructure pricing or figure out hey, we need to renegotiate this price if you have the buyers. But don't always be afraid of, oh my gosh, it doesn't perk for conventional. Get those reports and read them. That's one thing I've done a lot is I go through and I read those reports and I try to know exactly, okay, well, that system runs, just 2,000 more or 5,000 more from a conventional, or hey, this one is about 10,000 more than the conventional system, or hey, this is the one that's going to cost a ton. There's a piece of property in Mount Pleasant that I think is in a great location, but it's going to cost $30,000 to put in the septic system. So no one's touched it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Yes, Amanda.
Yes.
Sorry. When a tract of land or a property are located in a flood zone, the insurance for that property will be two types of insurance, the flood one and the property one, or it's going to be just a flood one more expensive than the regular one?
So you're going to have two types of insurances on it. You're going to have your normal homeowner's insurance, and you're going to have flood insurance. Typically, whoever does your insurance is your homeowner's insurance is going to do your flood insurance. It's just going to be like a rider that goes with it. But yes, it will cause your insurance to be more expensive for your clients, and it's also going to depend on, is the property in the 500-year flood zone or in the 100-year flood zone, and how much of the property sits in there, or does the house sit in there? So there's a lot of different factors that's going to affect if you need flood insurance and how much your flood insurance is going to cost. Maybe just like the little back edge of the property line sits in the 500-year flood zone. Your clients probably is not going to need flood insurance until you get the insurance agent to pull it up. But if it comes up and the house is actually sitting in a 100-year flood zone, like the neighborhood in Harrisburg, Middleton, most of those houses sit in the 100-year flood zone. They're going to need very expensive flood insurance. So there's a lot of varying factors of, do you need flood insurance, and how much is your flood insurance are you going to need based on how much of the property or is the house sitting in one of those floodplains. But always have them check. If you're looking at property that is in flood zoned, then have them check with their insurance agent for sure. Anything else? Any other questions? That's all I
Yes,
have.
Amanda. Yes, I
Yeah.
have a question.
Yeah.
How do you find out if a land can be divided? And if so, what needs to be done?
Yep. So that's a great question. What you would need to do is you would need to go to the zoning, planning and zoning, to find out, can it be divided? And if it can be, what is the minimum way it can be divided? So one is, what is the zoning on it? That's going to go ahead and say, kind of indicate, can it be? And then planning and zoning is where you're going to have to, go to planning and zoning, because it's also going to depend on the location of your property. Is it just in the county? Is it in the city and the county? Because there's a lot of different layers of where it's located is going to, and their rules is going to indicate of, can it be divided and how far can it be divided? Because typically if it's just county, sometimes they say, well, you need a minimum of 1 acre per lot, or they might have a special ruling of 2 acres per lot, all the way down to, hey, well, you can divide it out and do, have quarter acres per lot. And that's how we get our subdivisions, obviously. So planning and zoning, if your clients are looking to buy a big tract and just split it in 2 for, some friends or some family or something along those lines, or are they wanting to do subdivisions? So always start with planning and zoning of that county, because they're going to be your best friends during that parcel.
Thank you.
And I don't know if this helps or not, but I know in Mount Pleasant, some of the properties in the county are still under the jurisdiction of the city of Mount Pleasant. And I came across that recently when I was selling some property. Well, it was a house and it had acreage, and somebody was asking, can we put houses there? Can we put a business there? And I had to go through the city of Mount Pleasant and talk to them, even though we were not in the city, but that's where everything had to go through.
Yep, exactly. So even though, like, we say town of Mount Pleasant, they have their own rules for certain things, just like Harrisburg has their own rules. Midland has their own rules. Most of the stuff that's in Midland doesn't have I think just a little bit of it has a Midland tax, but Midland still has jurisdiction over a lot of stuff out there with their acreage. So just because the taxes say, you're only paying county taxes, you need to go through whatever city you're in, whether it's Landis, Kannapolis, China Grove, Mount Pleasant, Rockwell, Granite Quarry. Planning and zoning, again, is really going to be your best friend. They're gonna try to steer you in the right direction as much as possible, as long as you play nice with them. That's the thing I've learned. If you play nice with these people, they'll play nice with you too. But if you go in there and you act like, well, I need this and I need this and I need this, they're not going to be helpful. But if you go in there and you're like, you just tell them, hey, this is what I want to do, they're most likely going to be helpful for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. If no one else has any questions, that's all I got. Feel free to reach out to me. You can call me, you can email me, whatever you want to do. If you have land questions, I'm free to help. I am willing to help anyone with anything. Again, I know we always get these oddity transactions. You're like, I don't know I don't know what to do. I've never dealt with this, and that's perfectly fine. So just reach out. I'm here to help.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Bye, thank you. Have a good day.